Welcome back, everybody. This is CV Circle. This is our recap podcast where your hosts, Doug and Brady, we review our favorite TV shows and movies of the past, present, and possibly the future, all in service to an end goal of determining just how highbrow or lowbrow our viewing taste is. And along the way, we also talk about vintage styles and fashions, sometimes filming locations that are often lost to the decades. How are you doing, Doug?
I'm great.
Are you excited to talk about this episode today?
I sure am, because I was going to say to you, this is one of the first ones that we're ever recording at nighttime.
Immediately following the episode.
Yeah, so feeling very witchy.
Woo! You know, I was thinking almost of like redressing this set and making it like have all candles and us be sitting in the candlelight. But then I thought, we won't be able to read our notes.
And then the other problem is that maybe the smoke alarms would go off, and then that will ruin the recording.
Yeah. Yeah, you want to be able to hear it. That's
idea.
the whole point of a podcast. So what are we discussing today, Douglas?
Well, today we have Yellowjackets Season 3, Episode 6, entitled Thanksgiving Canada. The writers are Libby Hill and Emily St. James, and the director is Pete Chapman.
But before we get to the episode, and we're super excited to talk about it, we do have a postcard from The Edge. This is from a TikToker named Amanda G. You've got to go check out her TikTok. She has put together so many fascinating little exposés on theories she has about Yellowjackets. And they're not just about season 3, they're from all seasons. If you're interested about Walter's backstory or Adam's backstory, or there's a really great one about Ty and Van and what Van may have been up to in season 1. That's just like scratching the surface. You need to go to Amanda G's TikTok, and I'll put the little handle there at the bottom. Really fascinating work she has put together. Now, she commented on one of our shorts that we extracted from last week's episode where we were talking about Mr. Matthews, Lottie's condo or hotel they were staying called the Janeway. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I remember that.
So we were wondering if maybe the Janeway was a reference to Captain Janeway, right? Because I didn't find any Janeway building in either New York or in Vancouver where the show is filmed. So Amanda G said, I think the exact postcard from The Edge was check out the Jane in New York. Well, when I saw this, it really warmed my heart.
I've heard of the Jane.
Yes, because I lived there.
Oh, I know which one. It's formerly the Riverview.
Yes,
right?
Formerly the Hotel Riverview.
Right, I've been there.
And so Amanda did some research on her own ahead of time, and she saw in that one shot from last week where or maybe a couple weeks ago, where Lottie is on the phone with Ty, and there's a street sign in the shot, and it says Bedford, right? Oh, yeah. So Bedford is a street in the West Village of New York City. So she did put two and two together, thinking maybe she was at a hotel or something that was nearby Bedford. And if you look that up, you will find the Jane Hotel. So funnily enough, I lived there when I first moved to New York City in 1999. And I'm telling you, it was a flop house. I mean, it really was. It's for people that are just there short term. I happened to be there because my partner and I, at the time, we were on a wait list for an apartment and we needed a place to crash up until then. We ended up being there for 6 months. And it was crazy. It was really, really crazy. And so it was really fun to talk to Amanda about my experiences there. Now, since then, the hotel has been completely renovated. It's quite chic now.
Now, wasn't that the same hotel, too, where Hedwig started, too?
Yeah.
Because they used to do, like, the residency of the original Hedwig.
Yes.
Before it became,
which is
like,
so funny because there's
Broadway.
That John Cameron Mitchell connection. Yeah. So I think what Amanda G was saying here is that what a fascinating place this might have been as a connection to Yellowjackets, because the Hotel Riverview, or now the Jane Hotel, way back in the day, it housed the remaining crew members from the Titanic disaster.
Okay.
So what an interesting tie-in that would have been if it ended up being sort of Lottie's refuge also after coming back from the plane.
Now, wasn't there also a reference to the name Janeway has a connection with the Plaza Hotel,
right,
which would be the more fancy,
Yes.
a traditional hotel
Trust
that
me.
everybody would know, that
Everybody out
Eloise
there,
and
Amanda G. Trust me, the Hotel Riverview was nowhere near big enough to be this building that Mr. Matthews is staying in.
and that Hotel Riverview sure ain't the plaza.
No. I like the idea of it being the Janeway and connected to the Titanic, and it's very close to Bedford and all this stuff, but definitely probably not. Not the Jane Hotel. We have not been back, actually. We've not been to the Jane Hotel every time we've gone to New York, but I do hear that's lovely renovation, and someday I'll go back to revisit my history. But again, if you want to check out some really mind-bending stuff, go check out Amanda G over on TikTok. Really great stuff. There's a whole thing about Family Matters, which will just blow your mind from the last episode. Did Ty do that? Has connections to the previous episode as well, 12 Angry Girls and One Drug Travis. So check it out, and thank you so much, Amanda G. Hope we continue to have more conversations in the future.
Now, if you want to reach us or write a comment or just chit chat, it's Seaview Circle, SEEVIEW Circle.
It's across all platforms that we're on: Blue Sky, TikTok, Instagram, who knows what else. I would say if you're over watching us on YouTube, it doesn't take much to just hit the thumbs up, does it? I mean, what does it hurt?
I like emojis too. Please just send me an emoji.
Oh, okay.
It doesn't need to be even a smiley. It could be a fish. It could be a dog. I don't know. Whatever.
It could be bees. It could be bees. You know what I mean?
Stick a yellow jacket bee on there.
I wanted to say over on our TikTok, we also do have now a link tree. I think I put it up there. Hopefully I did by the time this episode airs. So that way you can find us everywhere. All right, let's get into it.
It was a chewy episode. There's a lot going on. A lot to cover.
You know, a lot of the actors you had said, they were referencing how this was one of their favorite episodes that they recorded for the season. And you can see why, because there's a lot of really wonderful movements in the plot.
We did get some answers to things that we've seen in the past season even, and things that have just been waiting to feel like, what is this about? So we're getting some answers.
Yeah.
Probably dispelling some theories as well.
Sure. And it was great that we were seeing some things that we were hoping we were going to see.
Yep.
Surprise, surprise.
And some things
surprise.
Some things we didn't want to see.
One thing we didn't want to see was Coach Ben looking so pathetic and miserable here. Basically what's happened is they've been keeping him alive, right? Because he is the bridge. Achilles says that he is the bridge that is going to bring them back to safety, which is giving all of the Yellowjackets some hope.
Right, but at the same
Who's
time,
the one who doesn't have hope,
he has no hope.
They have him still tied up in that pen with the other meat, as he said, and he is just completely despondent. His ankle is still cut, and that wound is open, which is disgusting.
Festering or whatever.
Meanwhile, and his hair is growing, which you were curious as to how long it was going to get, right?
I don't even know how long did that go on for. A week, 2 weeks? Who knows?
No, it went on for months.
Oh, okay.
Well, I mean, they show there's like a little montage that shows that time is passing, right? We know that this is going to be, I guess, Thanksgiving Canada, which we said last episode was sometime in October, maybe the second week in October. So they show this montage of Natalie trying to feed him this food to keep him alive, and he keeps saying, why are you doing this? Why are you keeping me alive?
Well, they definitely did a good job of making him look really ragged towards the end. He looked really bad.
So Natalie just can't do this anymore, right? She's seeing her former friend just like disintegrating before her very eyes, and she has to keep him alive. They all have to keep him alive because this is their hope going into another winter.
It was weird because they did make a mention as well to Aquila at some point too.
Oh, yes.
Like, are you sure?
Travis has said, everybody's kind of questioning, right? Did you really see this? Because they all can see what they're doing to this poor man is really grotesque.
Yeah, it's barbaric.
And it was Mari too, right? Mari has to sub in for Natalie, who can't even do it anymore.
Right, she can't take it anymore.
She gives the duty to her. That was an interesting scene too, because suddenly the tables were turned from earlier in the season when Mari was sort of trapped by Coach Ben in the cave, and now Mari was trapping Ben or forcing him to eat, just like he made her eat the bat. But of course, Coach Ben is not eating.
Yeah, and he's just dumping the food on the side, so it's kind of gross because you don't really see the flies, but you hear them.
Right. So Mari reports back that he's not eaten anything, which of course freaks everybody out because, again, if he stops eating and he dies, then he will no longer be the hope. Did you notice there was that little moment between Ty and Van sitting on the log, and they were kind of peering across the camp there to Shauna and Melissa?
Oh, yeah.
And they said, because in the last episode, at the very end, when they sliced Coach Ben's heel, then they grasped their hands, the bloody hands.
Yeah, the blood.
And then they went into the hut together. And Van was looking really curious. She's like, oh, Shauna's now on our team. You know what I mean? There was that moment. And so here is Ty and Van kind of looking at the newbies, if you will, the new couple, and seeing what their vibe is. The thing to note here is that since Shauna and Melissa have been hooking up, that Shauna's intensity has softened a bit. She is smiling more.
Don't they make note of that? They say,
Yes.
"Oh, she's more relaxed.
She's
or
better
something."
now. She's better.
She's better now.
And this is all in this scene where they're talking about, they're the ones who kind of show you that it is now getting to be fall, right? They talk about how they are going to be better prepared for this winter because they have furs, they have food, and they have, I think they call them fun huts, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, I think I heard fun huts. I heard the fun huts in there.
So they're all kind of questioning whether or not this hallucination that Akilah had was real. And in fact, I think when they had the little powwow in the hut, this is Lottie, Ty, Natalie, they even say like, well, maybe it wasn't real, but we have to keep it going because this is what's going to give everybody
Right, it's going to keep the hope going, and they're getting ready to go into wintertime again. So
right. So then Lottie's the one who comes up with this idea, and then we flip to later, and it's going to be Misty who is going to save Coach Ben. She's done it once before on the edge of the cliff when he was going to jump, and now she is going to prepare something that is going to allow him to eat his food.
Yes, and I do think it's very fitting for her personality to do what she does. It's very misty.
Very Misty.
It's very misty of her.
So we'll get into that crazy scene a little bit later on because I have a lot to say about it. But I guess we'll go back to the beginning of the episode and catch up with what's happening in the adult timeline.
We're going into Shauna and Jeff world now.
Yes.
It's apparently, it's 2 a.m.
Yeah.
So she's coming home now from New York after last episode's shenanigans at Lottie's apartment building, where she's
investigating with Walter.
And being an internet technician.
Right.
Jeff is waiting up for her, wondering where she's been, questions her. It's 2 a.m. and she has to relieve the information to Jeff that Lottie's dead.
Now, did you notice Jeff's reaction to Shauna saying that Lottie was dead?
It was a little awkward, I thought.
It was super awkward. He kind of like gets up out of his seat and he like pushes in. I don't know. To me, it seemed like bad acting. And I'm not sure if it's bad acting on Warren Cole's part. I'm wondering if it's bad acting on Jeff's part. Is there more to the story we don't know?
Maybe. I mean, I thought he would have been more shocked.
Right.
And of course, who hears it?
Ooh, Callie's up. Callie's up at 2
Callie's
a.m.
up too. It's obviously a big deal.
Right, because she reveals to Jeff that it's a murder. And Shauna believes this because she's already been like in their car, like thinking all the things that have been happening over the last couple of weeks, right? She remembers when Ghost Jackie tells her in the freezer that somebody's trying to hurt you. She remembers the playing with the Queen of Hearts in the restroom from episode whatever. And so she's freaked out. And now Callie's freaked out because she remembers she's got that tape that she hasn't been able to play sitting in her desk drawer.
And, what's funny is now at least we find out what kind of tape it is.
Yes.
It's a DAT tape.
Yes.
It's not a videotape. It's a digital audio tape, which I myself have quite a few here in this house because for recording, they are what you used to do, like industry standards in the 90s. So instantly, for me at least, I know like, oh, this is from the 90s, baby. So
the tape is from the 90s.
The tape is from the 90s, so it's very intriguing.
So Callie feels like, oh gosh, what have I done? Because she feels if what she's just overheard from her parents talking, that Lottie's death is the result of somebody going after them. And so she feels that she is partly responsible now for Lottie's death. So in that moment, Shauna and Jeff are like, oh my gosh, somebody's after us. And I think Shauna says, grab only your essentials. We're leaving the house.
Yeah, they're getting out of there. And you know what I think is funny? We're going to have some of these recurring places that we like so much.
Yes.
The Jolly Hitcher.
Here we are again. The same hotel where Adam and Shauna first slept together.
Yes, the beautiful Jolly Hitcher.
And also the place where Jeff was going to have his furniture reinstalled into the new renovation, right? Earlier in the season. Okay, so they go to the hotel, and I think Jeff is asking for complete honesty and truth from his wife because he knows that she plays some games, right? So she already, though, has her wheels spinning. She is not going to just like chill out at the hotel. No, she's going to do some more work onto what's going on here. So she sort of sends him away.
Sends him to the vending machine.
Right.
In the description, it was making a big deal about the vending machine, but it really wasn't.
That's why I'm saying these synopses, they throw you for a loop.
Was not a big deal about going to the vending machine, but it got Jeff out of the room.
Right.
And so Shauna calls. First she calls Thaisa looking for Van.
Right.
And they're at some spa thing at the luxury hotel. They're doing more of this luxury thing. So they're getting like massages.
Did you think that was interesting?
I did notice that there was lobster tails and like filet mignon being served and all this
couples massage. Looks like a lot of money was being spent. Now, Van questions, what this is all about. And Thaisa does say something which was very telling. She says, I'm doing all this because my life has been terrible recently. I've lost a lot, lost my job. I've lost my family,
friends.
My the love of my life has cancer. And you notice when she says the love of my life, Van was like, ooh.
Are you looking at me? Are you looking at me?
She claims this is all just to feel good, if only to feel something.
Right.
Right? Which I think is tying, no pun intended, it plays into this other Ty situation and what this battle is going on inside of her head. And of course, we will get to that. Now, Shauna is asking for Van, and she is looking for a vintage DAT player.
Yeah, and
Van should have that.
And Van is there, of course.
After Shauna makes that request to Van, then they hang up the phone and she tells Ty what Shauna wants. And this is the part where I think Ty was like not really interested. She wasn't interested in whatever was going on with Shauna, but Van was like, this is our friend. And she sounded really stressed out.
Right. She needs help.
Right.
So we got to do something.
So it was interesting then because Ty asked Van what Shauna wanted. Van says she's looking for an old DAT player. And Ty's like, why? Who needs DAT players? And Van says, only dudes in a garage band or super intense birders.
And at that point, though, they're like, we got to go.
Yeah. They're like, oh my God, get dressed now.
Yeah. Which I was like, oh, okay. This means something.
What was so weird afterwards, you mentioned as soon as we got into the set here, is that we had already done our little set decoration. And oddly, there are birds everywhere. I'm telling you, this was before we watched the episode. There is a bird in a cage. There is a bird here. There is an owl there. And on your jacket is another.
And there's another bird. So, hey, there you go. Kismet. Weird. Maybe the wilderness is talking to us.
Weird.
That is too freaky.
So speaking of freaky, the next scene that we see in this particular storyline is Van looking through her boxes. I guess she's moved in.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
She is looking for an old DAT player.
She's in the box of chords. I thought that was cute. Yeah. Like, we were very cognizant of that kind of situation. I think she finds too there's a DAT player with no batteries in it, like a Sony
relatable
one. Yeah. But then she has one of those phones, which, do you remember the see-through phone? Which I think they were popular in the 90s. They kind of look like an 80s phone too. I kind of remember them. But the weirdest thing is the lights start to flicker and then the phone starts ringing. Which is like the weirdest.
This was definitely when the whole episode just went like
I was thinking at one point, am I like rewatching like a dream sequence? Like, what's going on here? It was really weird.
It was really weird.
Yeah.
Now, did you catch what was said? Or
I
mean,
think
she
I
picks
caught.
it up.
I
She
think I
says,
caught what was said.
hello. I mean, this is so weird. I don't know how those phones work. Do they work on battery or what? What was it?
They would
plugged
not
into?
work. It wouldn't be plugged
I'm
into
so
anything.
confused about that.
So that's what I'm saying. It's a supernatural moment. So she picks up the phone and she does say Ty, and you can hear that kind of staticky kind of
Well, it's the
voice.
same sound that we heard when Ty and Van went to Ozzy's ice cream parlor. It's
Right.
that
I was just
same
thinking
weird,
about
like,
the Ozzy's phone line. You
Yeah.
know, when you call it.
right.
But didn't it say something? I need help.
It said, Van, I'm not. I can't help. That's what I think it said.
It's very cryptic.
Now, I think taking into context what we find out later, we can kind of figure out maybe what is going on here.
Yeah.
But in that moment, it certainly was wild. It sounds like Ty on the phone.
Yeah.
Like maybe muffled or trapped or whatever.
And then she just magically shows up
As soon
2
as
seconds
the phone
later.
call ends, she is there immediately asking about, what kind of box cutter she needs.
Yeah. And then it was very interesting because Van does not say a word.
No, she says, oh, no, I got what I needed. Thanks.
Right. So she's on to something.
Yeah.
And so are we finally, because it's finally coming to fruition what we were saying before in the last episode. The fact that when Thaisa met up with her son, he asks her, are you not my mommy anymore? Which at that point I was thinking like, okay, she's the other Ty. She's playing the Thaisa that he knows, but it's got to be other Ty. So now here we go again into this episode. It's becoming clearer that other Ty is taking over.
Switching back over to the hotel, and we have Jeff and Callie, and they're watching that same reality show again, which I don't know what exactly. It has to have some meaning.
The divorcee boat program.
It's really weird. I don't know what is going on there. It's the same one that they were watching when Lottie was over for the sleepover in that episode earlier in this season. But at any rate, we have Shauna who gets a phone call now from Thaisa, or it's Van using Ty's phone, saying that she's got the DAT player. And so Shauna says, great, let's meet up. And so Shauna says, I gotta go. I gotta leave. And of course, Jeff is concerned.
Yeah, and so is Callie.
Right. And Callie wants to get involved, right? She says, no matter what, I'm already a part of this because she's the one who had the tape.
She does have a point.
Yeah. But what's interesting is that Shauna now is trying to convince Callie, or admit at least, that she and Jeff have not been the best parents recently. They haven't been the most protective.
Right, and that they didn't do a good job of protecting her, and now like that's their number one job is they want to protect her. I mean, let's face it, they've exposed her to a lot of crap.
Yeah.
A murder.
Yeah.
I mean,
a lot. She shot Lottie, remember, in the last season. So Callie's like plays along. She is just as smart as her mom here, right? So in this moment when Shauna is going to leave because she's got some phone call and something's going on, Callie places her phone on record.
I think it's as she hugs her, she slips it into the bag.
Ooh.
And I think Jeff saw that too. Did you notice that?
No, I couldn't tell.
I thought he saw it, but anyway, we saw it.
We're recording this right after watching it, so we didn't see, we didn't rewind back too much.
We did not rewind much. Tiny bit, but not much.
So, okay, so then later on, we finally have them meeting up to listen to this tape. And so Shauna has summoned them to the parking lot. This is Ty and Van. And they're wondering, well, why can't we just like go up to the room or whatever? And Shauna says, oh yeah, it's too late. Jeff already has his sleeping boxers on.
Hey, we can't go up there. I don't want to see that.
So I think they start the tape right
They start
then and
the
there,
tape
but
and
then
you-
it like cuts.
You just hear the very beginning where it says something like testing 1, 2, 3 in a woman's voice. And then they chop the scene, and then later on they play more, and it basically sounds like a bunch of banshees screaming, and you're like,
It's this
boy.
howling that we kind of are familiar with because it sounds like the howling from the doom coming when, they've got Travis and they said, "Run, Stag, run." It's like that same howling.
We don't quite know what they're referring to, but we do know kind of what it sounds like. And you're going like, oh boy.
It's from the wilderness. This is a tape from the wilderness.
Yeah.
Somebody out there has a tape of them from the wilderness. And immediately Van says, "Oh, well, the only people who know about this are either us or they're dead."
Right. So
it's important to keep in mind there.
I know. And it is very strange because obviously they are being blackmailed by somebody.
Yes.
But who the hell can this person be?
Who is it? Okay, so Ty agrees. Yes, the only people that know about this are either dead or us. So let's just destroy the tape. And Shauna says, "Oh, you don't think there's some other, copy out there or something, whatever?" So she they're arguing about what to do about this.
Of course, then she looks in her bag and she sees this glowing phone, and she's not saying anything.
No,
just
she
like
doesn't.
just kind of like the last season where like she didn't want to say anything about what's going down to the ladies.
Right.
Like, okay, it's actually recording.
Yeah.
As she's speaking.
Now, you tell me about this, about the phones. You were saying how...
Well, because
she pauses it. She can kind of get in there. She has a...
Yeah,
she has a passcode? Or...
she got through without the passcode, but the stupid thing was I think she just tried to delete it. And, if you have an iPhone, you know that. You delete a recording, but that doesn't mean it's deleted for at least, like, I think it usually falls off after, like, 30 days. So when you delete any of this stuff, like even photographs, they stay on for a while.
Oh, right.
So you can always retrieve it.
Empty them from the trash or whatever.
I don't even know, though, with the Apple, if it goes to cloud or... I guess it would depend on what you have set up on your phone.
So maybe, Mama... soccer mom. Well, soccer mom, that's ironic. Mama Shauna doesn't know all the ins and outs of the phone.
She doesn't know all the ins and outs of the phone. So she gives the phone back. It was showing deleted recordings. And I guess Callie's getting ready to get in there.
Right.
Check it out.
Right. It was a really chilling scene with Shauna coming back to the hotel room. She was absolutely pissed off at Callie for sort of double crossing her mom in this moment, especially with whatever was on that tape. We didn't mention that after the howling at some point, there's a shout of "No!" Did you notice that? Now, do we see the "no"?
I don't know if we saw the "no," but...
I'll have to go back and look at that.
Yeah.
But, so anyway, I guess Callie and Jeff are on the bed and they're playing poker again with the cards, which for a moment there, I was like, what is going on here with these cards again?
I was getting worried. I was thinking, oh, God, are they going to pick out a king or a queen and then we're going to have some trouble? But
so Shauna sends Jeff away because she wants to have a very special mother-daughter talk with Callie.
Not unlike the time that she took her out in the car.
Yes.
And we thought she was going to kill her.
Yes.
So she pretty much says that you better get out of here before I do something that I regret. So it's like, really?
It was super intense.
And we know.
Yeah, when Shauna says she's going to do something she regrets.
You don't mess around
It could
with
involve
her.
A knife and...
Yeah.
Well, I think what's really sweet, though, or I don't know if it's sweet, Callie says something like, "I just wanted to be close to you. I thought you wanted that too."
Yeah, it was kind of sad, I thought.
This is like this relationship between the mother-daughter. We talked about it when we were going over the season 2 recap. There was that moment where at Lottie's intentional community, which we'll discuss a little bit later on, she has that goat, remember, and she's coming to terms with the fact that she has this really damaged relationship with her daughter. It's clearly not repaired, unfortunately.
Yeah.
All right, so later on, we have a scene over at Ty and Van's, and this is interesting. Again, we don't quite know what the last scene of this episode is going to be yet, but we have Van searching on her phone for how long does a DAT tape survive outdoors?
I was wondering, though, why would she be concerned about how long it survives outdoors when they've already heard it? Unless it was all corrupted.
Well, I'll get to it at the end.
Okay. Well, I do know, as I said to you, DAT tapes are very unreliable.
Oh, okay.
They were the best quality that you could get as opposed to like a CD quality.
CD recording.
But recording the digital information onto the DAT tape, you might be able to load in pieces done on DAT with like MIDI information on them, right? But
you're going over my head now, Douglas.
Well, anyway, the fact of the matter is the DAT tapes were very fragile and
Okay.
easily corruptible. Like, you can't get them near, like, magnets and things like that. And so that's the thing, is a lot of the time you would record something on a DAT tape and you get all these like digital glitches. So it's not very reliable.
Okay.
Even to this day. I mean, I have some DAT tapes where I thought like, oh, I've got some great quality versions of these tracks that you could put out, and they're like corrupted.
Okay.
And that's it. You can't really do anything with it. So it's
like unstable.
It's a very unstable mode of recording. It's not the best, which is why it didn't last.
Well, what's interesting is while Van is looking up this information, which does come into context later, suddenly Ty like wakes up out of her sleep in the bed and she shouts, "Van, I need you," or "I need help," or something like that. And Van's like, what's going on? And then you see this immediate change in Ty, and she's like, what are you doing up so late? Why are you still awake?
Yeah, she's totally unaware. So that was definitely proof it's other Ty.
At this point, we can see that Ty is trapped inside herself by other Ty.
And obviously,
she's in there somewhere.
And she's obviously, there's some supernatural stuff going on too, where she's trying to get her message out.
Yes.
However she's doing
Yes. It's fascinating.
It's getting real weird.
It's getting really weird. And unfortunately, this is going to, I say it again, it's going to tie in. It's going to tie in to this other situation we have going on in the adult storyline.
Do you think that we could get that little cuss bank out? So like every time you say tie,
yes,
you could put a quarter in there.
Okay, back at the beginning of the episode, or towards the beginning of the episode, we have Misty talking to this gentleman. And she's trying to get... It's not the same guy from before, right?
No, I don't think it was a different friend of hers who does DNA analysis.
Right. So she's looking for some sort of DNA information for the samples that she retrieved from underneath Lottie's fingernails. And I don't know if there was a bribe in there to get that information, or I don't know how she's getting this information.
I think she was alluding to that. Maybe she would go out with him or something. I don't know. You know, she was working her wares.
And meanwhile, I think that Walter is texting her, and again, trying to work with her. And I have the quote here, because Misty texts back off, ass face.
Ass face.
Put that in your pipe and smoke it, Sherlock. Misty, there was such language.
Such language.
Later, Misty is walking down the street. She's got Natalie's leather jacket on again. Oh, by the way, come on.
Yeah.
Right. Doug actually got this for me.
I found that. It was like a real good purchase.
It was a good one. So is Walter texting again? Yeah.
I think he's texting again. And he says something about there's a surprise for you. And then this limo pulls up and the guy says something like, "Are you Misty?" And we think that she's going to get in the limo, right?
In the limo.
But no, she's given bags of the garbage. But this is the same garbage bags that we saw in the last episode that the maid was dragging out.
I'm so glad that Lottie's this was followed up with, because we actually watched that episode again last night, and I was like, what happened to that garbage? What happened? So here's the garbage, and this is a peace offering, I think, from Walter to Misty, and he says something like, "Hey, I already went through this. I couldn't figure out if anything was incriminating."
And you know he probably did, but he's just thrown her a bone.
Probably.
At this point.
Probably.
Well, they show her later on undoing the garbage bag, and she's going through there, and she finds this Chinese food container, and it's like bamboo fry or something like that. So she starts to scope that out, and she's like, well, why would Lottie order food from a restaurant that's got a C? You know, that was kind of the big thing, which I thought,
and nothing vegetarian,
and nothing vegetarian. So
now, what's interesting though, if you remember that the trash went out before the last scene of the episode, or the last scene in that storyline of the episode last week, which was Shauna talking to Mr. Matthews, and if you remember in that scene, Mr. Matthews suggests to Lottie that they order from that same restaurant, the Chinese restaurant. So,
I guess they'd
already ordered from there before.
They probably already ordered there from before, but neither here nor there, it does provide the connection.
Ooh, it's good. This is good. You could
talk about this other little spoiler you saw too. we had a little inkling that we were going to see this character again.
Okay, so Misty goes to the bamboo restaurant or whatever, and she's scoping out across the way like this.
She's looking really fun with her dark sunglasses
uh-huh.
and the leather jacket again. She's looking very like...
Yeah. She sees pretty quickly. She sees Lisa.
And you know what? I was so stoked because I've been waiting for Lisa to come back. I kept thinking, like,
if you
I hope she's in it.
Our season 2 recap favorite things, we talked about Lisa a lot. We talked about Nicole Maines. We were really hoping that she was going to make an appearance. I try not to see any spoilers, really, but I just happened to go on my Instagram and I follow Nicole Maines, and she had a very interesting post.
Wasn't it a very cryptic post?
Very cryptic, but if you look at what she said now, it totally makes sense, because she says, imagine if you were at some dead-end job and the person who killed your mother accused you of killing your other mother.
Very
And that's exactly what ends up happening.
Yeah.
Right?
So
her mother, she's seeing Natalie as a mother figure.
Yeah,
in
mother
that
figure.
moment. And Lottie as well, obviously. So Misty follows her right to her apartment or something at the end of her shift. And we don't know this yet, but apparently she's got Lottie's 50 G's, right? This is the money that Lottie had taken out.
Yeah, she reveals that she saw her, and she said that Lottie gave me $50,000 as a gift, and, pretty much said that in her
sort
life.
of as an absolution for
everything
that had happened.
Right, for taking all her
community.
money at the cult and blah, blah,
right,
blah, blah,
and
blah.
just, everything collapsing and having all that hope and whatever that was is all vanished.
Yeah, and she kind of made note of that, in life when there's bad things that happen. So, and if somebody gives you something good, it's like you take it, and she's like, I'm taking this.
Right.
So
but Misty sees that it's fishy because she considers that, oh, well, maybe Lisa pushed her down the stairs and took the money that she just happened to have. And Lisa says, no, that's not at all what happened. But if you're going to go down this road, if you think it really was a murder, perhaps you need to look at your own friends.
Thaisa.
She reveals.
Yeah, she reveals that she saw Thaisa and Lottie at the cafe.
Yes.
That day, I guess, that she died.
Yes.
Which is, okay, here we go.
So I guess the last scene with Misty is her at home, and she gets the report back of the DNA from the guy from earlier in the episode. But since she has nothing to really match it against, she now throws the bone back out to Walter, and she says, maybe you can do something.
Right,
with
so
this.
there's the other extension of the olive branch. Back to Walter. We know they're going to be back together soon. I sure hope so.
Now, what's really intriguing, of course, is we know that Walter already has the DNA sample from Shauna, and he obviously thinks that maybe Shauna had something to do with this. So my guess is, if it is other Ty, who is clearly in a lot of places that we're not seeing these days, then it isn't going to be Shauna, and that verification will be made exactly what Walter said. Walter said, if this happens, and you're thrown into suspicion or whatever, this will clear you, and this will probably clear Shauna from this.
Now that you're talking, my gears are going in my brain. I'm just saying that, digesting this episode in whole, the going back to the tape.
It's happening in the moment, people. It's
going back to the
tape,
I still think, obviously, the only other person that I can think of that I know we haven't seen yet, who we're supposed to see in the show, is the Hilary Swank character.
But wait a minute. We're kind of jumping the gun here.
I know, but I think this mystery of the tape and the person who's been either stalking or bribing, if it's not one of those girls that we're already seeing, one of the ladies, the only other logical person it could be would be the Hilary Swank character, if she's playing the Melissa.
So let's just really break this down. We have the bird watching couple that comes in and disturbs this Thanksgiving feast.
Yes.
They have the recording, right? They're recording the wailing and all those noises.
Yes.
Then there's a no. I don't know if that no was it Lottie saying no, or saying stop? People walking in on this. I can't remember.
Well, the guy said something like, holy shit.
Yeah,
He said
yes,
something like,
yes,
holy shit, but I don't know if that was on the
okay,
tape.
That's right. It wasn't on the tape, but that's what we see.
It's when he
because they're
saw
eating Coach
the
Ben.
head of Coach Ben.
Right.
Which obviously we know Coach Ben had already been kind of carved up.
Right. They've been chewing on him. Lottie's chewing on him. So, holy
She's
shit.
chewing on his spare rib.
Yeah, on his juicy butt, hopefully. Juicy
Well,
stuff,
maybe.
yeah. Anyway, so they see that, and I'm assuming that when Van says the only people that know about this are either us or dead, that means that that couple is dead.
I would believe so.
In the next episode, they're going to have to die. But that tape is going to exist out in the wilderness, which is why Van is wondering how long does it last out in the wilderness.
Okay.
Because it's still there.
Right.
There you go.
That makes sense. Okay.
Or, like you say, the Hillary Swank could be Melissa. That could be the person who has the tape that saved it. Or maybe there still is this Javi's friend that's out there and has the tape. Who knows? But that, I believe, is what is going to happen. So somebody's going to have a grudge against these people and still has the tape, and it's come out of the wilderness, right?
Fair enough. Yeah. It's got to be.
Or, I mean, we don't know what happens to these people exactly.
Well, we're going to find out next week, I hope.
You know, where does this tape go? Does it fall out? Does it whatever? But obviously anybody else could have picked up that tape later on down the line, too. Think about it. Could be anybody.
Yeah, well, but most likely it's going to be somebody from the tribe.
What if...
Oh.
What is going on? This is like...
That was
like what
just
happened to
literally
Van.
what happened to Van.
I think we're going to need those candles.
I think so. Maybe we're going to have to continue this in the dark tonight.
Oh, it's weird. Well, that's better. I don't know if you can see us. It's very windy out, so maybe we have a storm brewing out there.
But I like the atmosphere. Yeah. It's kind of good for the wilderness.
I dig it. Maybe we're going to have to do this every week.
Yeah, we could. You know what? Actually, this is the first time we're recording at nighttime, too. We have been usually recording in the daylight, so it's a little different.
So now where were we? I was about to tell you... Oh, I know. So the couple, right? The couple comes into the party.
Yep.
Is it possible that bird-watching couple has a son or daughter that we know of now in the adult timeline?
Yeah, I mean, why wouldn't that be possible? I mean, anything's possible, I think, at this point.
And wouldn't someone like Walter be the perfect progeny of a bird-watching couple?
No, totally. He if there was ever going to be a son of a couple of birders, he would be it.
Right. And what about the fact that in the episode 1 of this season, do you remember Walter is the one who has found out about Natalie's storage room, and he passes the information off to Misty, get her out of bed.
Right.
But when she goes into the storage room and she looks through Natalie's things, there is a case of tapes. And I believe someone had said out there that there's kind of a missing slot in there. So maybe Natalie was the one who got the tape from this couple and brought it back with her. And maybe Walter has been hounding these people trying to find out what happened. Because you can imagine if your parents went missing while bird watching in Canada, and then you later found out that there was a team of people that were stranded out in the same area and they were cannibals, you might put two and two together.
Especially when you're a citizen detective.
Right. And what about the fact that he came into all that money? Maybe he never really had some weird-ass accident. Maybe.
Well, maybe it's a life insurance policy.
Right.
That's I like that theory.
Right? But here's the other thing, though, too. I have to say, you had questioned earlier about Van and why she was wondering how viable would that tape be out in the outdoors for how long. Maybe it never was brought back by someone from the team. Maybe because, they would probably know that. They would know that one of them had the tape. But maybe the couple had been recording this, whatever this moment was, and maybe they had their DAT player strapped to a tree, or maybe they had it in a bush, or maybe they set it aside when they saw what was going on at this party, and then they left it there. And maybe that DAT player's been sitting out there all this time, only to be discovered now by some hiker or a park ranger, maybe Someone that looks just like Hilary Swank?
Yeah, well, or I mean, the other thing is it could be very likely that the next episode, maybe we're going to find. I mean, we don't know what's going to happen to these people yet, but
we know what's going to happen.
One could
Again,
surmise,
because Van says the only people that know about this are either dead or us.
well,
right?
there was this little image for the promo of Yellowjackets.
Yeah.
I don't know if you saw it. It looks like it's 3 skulls. Maybe the 3 skulls are Coach Ben and then 2 other people. Like they didn't know who the 2 other people are, but that would make sense, right? Maybe it's the birders.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, so I think that's a good theory.
Now, there was one more thing I wanted to mention I forgot about earlier while we're talking about all these crazy theories, is that, and this one was actually given to me by Snacky's Ear, okay? So we were kind of chatting on TikTok, and she was reminding me about this Jeff situation at the beginning and his reaction to Lottie's murder. There's a scene later on that we forgot to talk about. You know, we talked about the scene, but we didn't mention that on Jeff's right hand, there are clearly some scratches.
Yeah. And did you see Shauna kind of gave a look at it at one point? Like it was kind of like, so that's kind of interesting too.
Right. So could those scratches have been from Lottie? Was it Jeff who is actually protecting the Sadecki family at all costs? And wouldn't Jeff be like the ultimate person you would never suspect to do something like that?
Yeah, because he's
such
so
an
like,
aw shucks.
Yeah, aw shucks
kind of guy. Good picking up on that, Snacky's Ear. We like that.
Good eyeballs. Good eyeballs. Oh, hey, thank God for the DWP.
Yeah, and now we should probably put all these candles away.
Yeah, we don't want a fire in here.
We'll be right back.
We'll be back. I keep reading all these things on like, you know, the Facebook Yellowjackets Blood Hive group, and then there's a few other groups that are scattered around. But I feel like now, well, we know Coach Ben he was kind of the bridge. Maybe he is the bridge.
Okay,
maybe this is going to be still part of, he's a bridge of something.
Yeah, I guess.
Because if they hadn't done this feast,
let's talk about it.
Maybe they wouldn't have been heard.
Let's talk about it. True. Okay. To me, when we go back to Coach Ben not eating and then being so obsessed with losing hope about Coach Ben being the bridge and he has to survive because this is how they get home, we have then Misty coming in with this tube to force feed him whatever this gruel is.
That was terrible.
And this is such an interesting scene because this is the very first time we are seeing the beginnings of these costumes.
Right.
We have Travis wearing that kind of bare front thing. We have the rabbit ear nylon headpiece somebody's wearing. I don't know who's wearing what, and I guess we'll have to go back and really verify that. We have then the kind of sweater that's been turned into a baklava. We see that for the first time there. To me, if you want to talk about Coach Ben being a bridge, to me, he's the bridge of the absolute descent into madness for these people. That's what I see. But, you know, I mean, again, like you say, they did all this. He was feeling sick. He didn't eat. He was a poor old dog that he put out of his misery. And Natalie, she went in there and she did, in her mind, the right thing. And now they're eating him. And now these people come. It's all this weird connection, this movement forward into the next level.
Right. And obviously, certain things have happened to a point in this screwed up existence where Natalie, yes, she thinks she's being kind to put him out of his misery, but then you have Shauna coming through and making sure that Natalie is going to have to prepare the feast,
right?
i.e. do something really terrible that's going to break her down,
right?
And even to the point where she speaks about, oh, well, you know, cover the face, it'll be better for you. And I kept thinking to myself, it's like, well, where did Shauna learn all of these tricks, like before the wilderness? How does she know all this
Well,
stuff?
I don't know that she knew all of it before the wilderness, but do you remember when she had to cut up Javi? That's what she did. She covered her face and she just sort of felt around the anatomy because it was too disturbing for her in that moment. But I think you touched upon something that I really wanted to talk about, which was the Natalie situation. So after they force feed him and it's totally disgusting, and all the other team members come out of there and they're like, oh my gosh, that was like insane. Then Natalie goes in to check on him, and he is just totally despondent, and he's just like, why are you doing this? Why are you keeping me alive? And she says, we can't let you die because we can't lose that hope. And he then just sort of like laughs.
Yeah, he was
dark.
Really crazy.
It's super dark in that moment.
Oh, he did say the service here sucks.
Yeah.
The service here sucks. Well, of course it does.
Natalie is feeling so guilty about this that at night she decides to put him out of his misery finally.
And Travis covers for her too.
Right. Travis stops her, and he's worried about her because, remember, they're the couple that was in love in the first season, and they went through a rough patch obviously in the second season, but obviously they still love each other and care about each other even if they're not technically together right now. And he's worried that if Natalie does this, that she is going to be ostracized from the group, and he wasn't wrong in thinking that, right?
Yeah. There seems to be this initial like, all right, she's the enemy. Now we're going to have to get her because she's killing
Misty
Coach
calls
Ben.
for it. Misty calls
Yeah.
for it. Why isn't there not a trial for Natalie when there was for Coach Ben? That's not fair. And what's happened here is that Natalie has pissed everybody off, and then Shauna now takes the Antler Queen role, and Lottie basically says, I think maybe Shauna should.
Yeah,
do it
Shauna
now."
should be the Antler Queen.
Did you notice that Ty was not pleased?
Yeah,
She's like,
she
why
did.
am I being passed over again?
Yeah, she looked really pissed off.
But Shauna is trying to keep the cool.
She was keeping it the team. Remember, she
Yeah.
talks about we're still a team,
right.
And
I thought it was interesting because then she says, "Yeah, we're gonna now we're gonna honor Coach Ben. That's
Right.
what we do for the sacrifices or the death. We honor them." And I was like, "Oh wow, what a turn of events, Shauna."
Yeah, all
but
right.
You can see though that this was a ploy for her to basically stick it in Natalie's face. But this is what I wanted to get back to, was this Natalie guilt, because remember we were talking about season 2, and you even said, well, Natalie hasn't done too many bad things, right?
Right.
See, we start seeing more and more of what these people did out there, and this is a very terrible thing that Natalie has had to deal with her whole life up through the adult timeline that we saw, that Coach Ben was one of her best friends out there, and she killed him to put him out of his misery. But then she also had to chop him up for this celebration. One of the things I found was really fascinating in the scene when, I think it's the one where she is being taught how to chop him up by Shauna. Her roots have grown in so much, and the style of her hair in that particular scene, the blonde is kind of hidden in the back, and just her face is framed with the darker hair. It's very much like Juliette Lewis, her look
I thought
in
that.
season 1.
Yeah.
I thought that was really cool. That was really clever, showing that bridge. Again, to me, showing this guilt that is being passed on to later in life. Ugh. And even more poignant then is that it ties into what's going on in the adult timeline with Lisa, who is really upset that Misty had killed Natalie, and she says to Misty, wow, out of all the screwed up things that you people did or whatever, she was really trying to make an attempt at bettering her life and getting forgiveness. And so it's really cool how that's a through line all throughout that episode for Natalie. I really thought it was kind of a special thing that you almost don't even pay attention, can't even pay attention because there's so much stuff going on. And then later on, there's another great little callback too, when they're at the feast, like I think the very first moment of the feast, and you have Natalie and she's feeling terrible about this. And then you have Mari, and Mari also has compassion for Coach Ben, even though that whole situation was crazy at the beginning of the season. And Mari says to Natalie, it's like she's grateful.
She said it was like the right thing to do or something.
Well,
to
she
that
said
effect.
she has to officially say that it was the wrong thing to do.
Right, but that she's just giving her, there's a kind of smile or,
Right,
like you did.
Because they had compassion for him and they knew that he needed to be put out of his misery. And he clearly did, because in that scene where she puts the knife into his heart, literally, he even says, thank you.
I know, it was very sad. I'm sad to see him go. Maybe he'll be back as a ghost, though.
I don't know. I don't know. I feel like maybe what we'll see him in. Well, okay. Let's talk about this Aquila thing because
No, let's talk about the
there's this
next
dream.
vision.
Right. Okay. So back again, we have Aquila now, who is now she's kind of the one in charge here in a way of her vision quest. Okay. Because she wants to see if there's anything that she's missed. I think what she's feeling is that here poor Coach Ben is suffering and she is really the cause of this. Right.
And now she's kind of second guessing her
"Oh, shit,
visions.
like maybe if I can find something else in that cave that can maybe put this guy out of his misery or something. And then again, we have this whole thing with Travis, which is really weird because I'm pretty certain at this point, like 100%, that he just made that up because he wanted to get Lottie off of his back earlier in the season. And so now he's like, he can't really say anything because in a way it's kind of his fault that this is all spiraling out of control. But at any rate, later on in the episode, we have Lottie basically pleading to a tree, like, give me a sign. And then Aquila's there. And so she, wants to go back to the caves. And what is the vision she has?
That was really weird. The vision was this like giant bear, but it was like one of these old school like claymation.
Michel Gondry, Björk video, human behavior. It just reminded me of that type of animation, that very kind of like, it's like natural, but like...
It reminded me of Land of the Lost. Like, it's Lumpy from, the dinosaur.
Yeah, it's this kind of like
stop motion
lo-fi
clay
special effects. But what you're seeing in that moment, at least this is the way I interpreted it, because earlier in the episode, they referenced, it might have been Travis when he was talking to Aquila about Lottie's visions, or I don't know who he was talking to at the time, but to be honest, but he references the bear and the sparrows falling out and how they all thought it was something that maybe it was nothing. And so they kind of, I think they make a reference that that Coach Ben is a bear, the bear or something like that. And so to me, in Aquila's dream, that was, and I could be totally wrong, but to me, that was a symbol of Ben trying to say something, trying to communicate, but he couldn't.
You're getting real deep on me.
I don't know. That's just what I saw.
Yeah. Well, I appreciated that stop motion type of, kind of quirky, fun stuff.
I think it's fun that they've gone in this direction in this season. It's definitely opened up the universe of Yellowjackets by having these cave hallucinations. And I do think it's cool also when we did the little research about the Oracle of Delphi, that when I read about that, they had said that back in the day, her visions were considered unreliable. And so that's kind of where, we were talking about, is he the bridge? In some way, shape, or form, he will be the bridge to whatever this next level is.
Yeah.
To me, it seems to be this descent into madness.
Well, and he might still be the bridge to them getting home, because obviously there are people showing up.
Right.
At their party.
Here we go.
So here we go.
Misty, who does not partake in this feast of in the end, she doesn't eat Coach Ben's.
I thought
juicy
she
butt.
was eating some mushrooms and berries
Yes.
on the side,
Yes.
being very demure. Obviously, she's very upset.
Oh, we didn't talk about that scene. Let's do that real quick.
Yeah.
So she goes in after that morning after, right?
Yeah.
The morning after was rough. Okay.
City.
You have Natalie, she's got blood on her face. I think that was the moment where I really saw in her eyes that kind of, again, that guilt of like, what did I just do? Like, that reminded me of like the older Juliette Lewis. But then we also had the Misty visit. Tell me what you thought about it.
Well, I mean, the way I looked at it was she finally got to kiss her Prince Charming, even if he was dead. But it was very sweet because she untied him, and then she put his hands kind of like, I guess religious, right? Prayer.
Right. Sort of in a, like
as you would
repose.
see. Yeah, a dead person, I guess.
And then, she started crying, and then she did this thing where she like beat herself up to stop crying. She did that before, I think, in season 1 as an adult. So I thought that was an interesting tie back to that. But then she kind of got back into it when she looked at him and she leaned in to give him a kiss. I was like on the edge of my seat.
What, did you think that she was going to end up treating her like Jackie was treated by Shauna? She was going to keep a Coach Ben doll?
No, but I thought she was going to make out with him.
Oh, no, thank God she didn't make out with him. But maybe she would have wanted to have her own Coach Ben doll,
Yeah, for sure. Oh,
his meat is too good. everybody's hungry, you know?
Oh, my God.
It's time to eat. It's Thanksgiving.
So she starts singing at the feast, and I don't know what the tune was, and I'm sure someone's going to know. And
Someone will know.
Someone will know what that tune is. And I think they've been drinking some wine, too. Okay, they've all got the robes on again from the pagan ritual. So this is definitely some sort of festivity, and we don't know in the script that it's Thanksgiving, but the title of the episode, so it must be Canadian Thanksgiving. And there's some moments there again where Ty and Van are looking across, and they do see Shauna and Melissa kind of again giggling and laughing, and so they're saying, yeah, Shauna's definitely chilled out now, which I think maybe was important that they showed that she was maybe a little bit more chill, because that's going to make her a more agreeable antler queen.
Right. Now that she's got the power,
Yeah.
she's going to be a little bit more
chill.
comfortable.
Yeah.
She's got the power. She's in charge of the ladies.
So who is kind of feeling off in this moment? It's Lottie, right? She was like, "This isn't how it's supposed to happen." Isn't that what the line is?
Yeah, I think she said something very.
Kind of, she was hearing the singing, and then you could hear like.
Well, she heard some other.
You heard birds, baby. You heard bird sounds.
Is that what that
like
was?
Like night bird sounds. I don't know what the name of the bird is, but yeah.
See, for me though,
like,
I thought I heard weird laughing.
Oh yeah, we
from
heard
the
that
cave.
Too.
Like, and I kept thinking, is this the cave people?
Okay.
Or the spirits?
No,
or
no,
what
no,
is
no.
this?
I took it as it was Natalie's laugh, I think. So she heard Natalie's laugh, but then she looked across and Natalie clearly was not laughing. And so there was like this weird disconnect where she was like...
I just thought she was having another vision.
Well, kind of, because do you notice when she looked in the fire and it was all like weird?
Yeah.
Okay, so again, are they drinking some berry wine? Probably. Have they just been eating completely diseased meat from Ben's butt? Probably. I think what's happening here is that they are so completely stressed out that this is just that like communal wailing that you might do if you were, on a business retreat with your office and they tell you to do this. They're doing this in nature. It's this communal,
well, it's a primal
scream,
a complete primal scream, and they're
letting it all out.
And whatever it is, whether it's the trees that are screaming to, they're just
That's
going
what
with
was
nature.
So interesting that here we've been hearing this music, throughout the series since season 1, these kind of calls and whatever. And it sounded like their sounds, their wailing, their calls suddenly were morphing into that music.
Yeah.
Perfectly blended.
And of course, that scene that you're seeing, I think, isn't that used in the intro too at times?
Possibly,
because I remember seeing it all the time going like, we haven't seen that yet. And then you finally see like that overhead shot, and it's like it's circles, a series of circles, and it's just all beautiful and fire and gorgeous. But then you see this tall figure.
Yeah, okay.
Lottie sees this tall figure. I
thought it was, again, this Javi's friend who's up on the hill. I always say this, Javi's friend is the one up on the hill in the opening sequence, that person that's up there kind of like looking down. I thought that was her. I thought it was, again, Hilary Swank. But then as the person creeps in closer, like, oh no, it's a dude.
And he's wearing glasses, and he's got a little green, like, vest on.
All right, so friends, let's just be honest here. We just watched this episode. Who are these people? We had to watch it a couple times.
Who are these people?
And we know that Joel McHale is going to be in this season. I was like, that doesn't look
I
like
took
Joel
pictures on my phone really quick. Stopped. I was like, who is that?
We did actually look at IMDb. It is already updated with who these people are. I actually didn't write down his name, so forgive me. But what I did find was interesting was that the wife or the partner of this person
they're the birders.
is Ashley Sutton. And Ashley Sutton was touted at the beginning of this season as joining the cast. And I thought I had heard or read somewhere that she was playing Shauna's mother, because it had been reported that they were going to return back home and they were going to show Shauna's mother, and this was going to be Ashley Sutton. But I am pretty sure that was Ashley Sutton there, and she's been to the premiere, and she was even there on the Hollywood Walk of Fame with Christina Ricci when she was getting her star on the Walk of Fame a couple weeks ago.
Oh, well, see, that's very weird.
Interesting.
So maybe she's going to be in more than one episode. God knows what's going to happen, but maybe one of these characters is going to stick around for a while.
How?
Well, maybe they'll keep one. They find a pet human.
Well, they've
At
already
this
had
point-
they just got to keep having another one. Well, I guess technically, if you go back to the bridge theory again, that Coach Ben is the bridge, yes, maybe they kill the one and they keep the other one alive as a tool to figure out how to get back. Now, let's talk about where they are. I don't have that book. I was reading it
The
earlier.
book is in the other
The
room
book is in
right
the other
now.
room, which is this wilderness areas of British Columbia. And let's go all the way back to Postcards from the Edge. We were talking about Amanda G over on TikTok. She has a really good post about where they may be, and you should all check it out.
Okay.
She talks about Big Ben being the bridge, and there's actually a place in British Columbia called Big Bend, which is fun. But there's all these other places where it could be, and I have to tell you, you got to see this post because what Amanda has done is she's actually gone back to the fall, winter of 1996 and actually looked to see where the weather patterns were. And what she has, you'll love this, what she has determined is that Shauna's baby was born or birthed and died on December 29th.
Oh, that's your birthday.
I know.
Happy birthday.
Isn't that weird?
Oh,
because
wow.
it was this big snowfall. It was a
Are
blizzard.
you trying to tell me you're Shauna's baby?
I'm Shauna's baby.
Except that you're a little bit older than that.
Anyway, so it's really fascinating though when you think about where they are and how deep they are into the Canadian Rockies. And what you can decipher from a lot of these sources is that there are wilderness areas that are completely inaccessible by vehicles and roads, right?
Oh,
The
yeah,
only way
I
to
mean-
get there is through hiking.
Well, I just watched this kind of documentary the other day. I don't think you were watching it with me, but there was a whole thing about Alaska and Canada.
yeah.
And it was really fascinating because they kept talking about how many of these areas are uninhabited and there's no roads or anything. There's no way to get to them. So it's like the majority of all that land is empty space and it's wilderness. And I was thinking, well,
so no wonder nobody found these people for so long because you could never even penetrate deep into that area.
yeah, and it's great.
Walter, penetrating the system.
Penetrating the system and making its toes curl.
The only other thing I really wanted to mention about that final scene, which I think is really intriguing, is the reactions of the Yellowjackets, right? So what did you see on their faces?
They all looked a little bewildered.
Some of them looked just simply amused. Others looked happy. Misty didn't look anything.
She didn't look anything.
I'm wondering if Shauna's had the most interesting reaction because it was like there was somewhat of a smile in there, but I didn't see it as a smile as though like, oh, we're going to be saved. To me, it was almost like, oh, here's an opportunity. That's what I looked at it as. To me, it feels like, do they even want to be saved?
Right. At this point, do they want to be saved? Yes, I'm sure they do, but there's going to be hell to pay.
Some of them do, some of them don't. Yeah, exactly. And this is a moment right here where it's a real, let's figure this out real quick.
It's going to be a real interesting episode, the next one.
Right. Because this is a moment where they now have basically innocent people that are involved here. These are not all this craziness with everything else they've been dealing with, all these different weird situations with the Lottie and the dreams and the spirits and all this. These are just random people, totally innocent to the situation. If they murder these people to cover up the Coach Ben, they are now in some pretty deep waters.
They're lucky that Bobby and Cindy weren't showing up with a flashlight.
Not
The Brady Bunch.
Cindy.
They ate Bobby, they ate Cindy, they ate the little Native American boy, and they ate the beans and franks inside the flashlight.
All right. Well, I have to say, we have to wrap this up. It's been going on for a while. It's well into the night, but that was fun to watch that and go right into discussing.
Yeah,
I'm
I
sure
mean,
we missed some things.
Yeah.
I know I forgot to mention that Coach Ben, the bear, who I believe is Coach Ben, had a third eye as well. Don't know exactly. Do you know about third eye? What that has to do with?
Well, I mean, it's the all-seeing eye, obviously, but, you know, if we're going to get into the mystical aspect, I'll need to consult my books.
Or we'll just ask Amanda G to look into it. Get back to it. All right. Did you have a favorite scene or a favorite line?
Oh, I had a favorite line, and I wrote it down. It was Lisa's line,
Oh,
when
okay.
She was talking to Misty. She said, "Not all of us turn our trauma into stabby.
Oh, right. When she was being accused of Lottie's murder.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
I thought that was a cute
really,
line.
really good. It was great to see Nicole Maines. I'm so happy. Thank you, writers.
Well, let's hope she's going to be in more.
I don't know. Maybe that's all she was there for, just to give that information to set it up for the tie stuff. But even if that is the case, I am just happy that they sort of put a button on that, because we all were wondering where she went. And now we know she was gifted $50,000 from Lottie, which is really sweet. Also, sort of a redemption for Lottie as well.
Oh, yeah. Plus, you can do a lot of thrift shopping with that. You can buy a lot of heliotrope clothing.
You could. Maybe you could start your own intentional community.
You could start your own intentional community.
With a 50 grand little seed money. All right, so now we're coming in for a landing on this episode to get right down to the Lotus Point. We are going to find out just how highbrow or lowbrow this particular episode of Yellowjackets was. I know we're putting you on the spot here, Doug, because we just watched the episode. What would you think? What would you rate this episode?
So I'm going to rate it higher than normal.
1 to 5.
I'm going to give it like a 4.2.
Ooh,
yeah.
Okay.
Because I feel like it was really tight. I don't think there was anything in there for the sake of it.
Right.
And I think that probably going back later on when we look at this episode with all the other ones sitting in it, we're going to see how important and pivotal this episode is to the storyline.
I would agree. I think I had mine at a 4. I wrote down, and I have to say my favorite element is, again, this sort of, really the moment that I saw Sophie Thatcher's face framed with the hair that reminded me of adult Natalie portrayed by Juliette Lewis, and seeing this transition of this poor person who now has more guilt for what she's done here to Coach Ben, and really in a way for allowing the suffering to go on for so long first. That factors into it too. So that, and then the tie-in. Oh, I did it again. Where is that?
We'll bring that bank out next week.
The connection to the Lisa character in the adult timeline, again, reverting back to the Natalie storyline, I think was a really nice touch. So good job, everybody. Good job. What do you think is going to happen in the next episode? I mean, obviously, we're going to see them having to deal with those super intense birders.
The burner birders.
And then also, what do you think about the tape? Like, what's going to happen there? Obviously, Callie's going to listen to it.
Yeah, Callie's going to listen to it.
She's going to know finally what happened.
Well, yeah,
or some details.
Yeah, she's going to know. And let's face it, does the tape carry on?
Right.
Probably it does.
They stopped that tape real quick.
Yeah, maybe they're going to hear much more than what they thought was. I mean, they might not even know that tape existed, right?
Right. That's what's interesting. That's really what's interesting. Well, I guess if they murder both of them, they're going to take off their clothes and find what's in their stuff. But if one of them runs away, but see, then Van wouldn't have said that the only people that would know about this are either dead or us. They have to get rid of both of them.
Yeah. Oh, boy.
Speaking of which, the next episode is called simply Croak.
Croak. Oh, boy.
Now, there are no other details about this episode. In fact,
I can't even make up a synopsis.
You can't even do that voice.
Okay.
Unless you want to make one up.
Next on Seaview Circle.
What's cool about it, though, is that we actually don't even have any promo images for this upcoming episode. So we really have no idea. Although, there is a promo image from episode 8.
Oh, I saw
Should I talk about this?
Yeah, let's talk about it real quick.
Okay, if I can't talk about episode 7, I can talk about episode 8, because there is a picture of, I believe it's Ty is in the center, and I don't know, there might be a Britt and a Robin and some of these other people. Jen maybe might be in there, and they are facing what looks to be one of these like airplane seats again, and there's somebody facing them sitting down. This could be the Ashley Sutton. So maybe what you're saying is true. Maybe they are going to keep this person around for a while, because they appear to be talking to someone down like this, and she does have brown, or they have brown hair. So possible spoiler there, but we got to give you something here, and it's just my theory. Who knows?
It's a theory, and a theory doesn't necessarily mean anything.
Right. So we want to thank you for joining us and spending some time with us this week.
Yes.
And we want to invite you back for our coverage of Episode 7, Croak.
And
Stay hungry, friends, and we will see you then back on the sack.
Night, night.